Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining us. This is NINAS, the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. And this is the alliance of the Middle Belt to the South. And today we have an exciting program for everyone. We're going to be talking about Nigeria. Of course, we're going to be talking about Nigeria. There's lots of things going on in that country that we call Nigeria. We're going to be talking about what has it accomplished in all these years of its independence. And by the way, Nigeria turned 61. That's 61 years old on October 1st of 2021. What has it really accomplished? Are there things that we have to cheer about? We're going to be talking about those woes. We'll talk about what's going on with security. What about the food situation in Nigeria? What about employment? What's happening with the youth? What is happening with the economy, progress, federal character, schools, hospitals, roads, electricity? Is Nigeria getting a pass mark on all of this after 61 years? But today we're really going to be also very much focusing on the victims. Who are victims in Nigeria? I'm sure some of you saw what was happening in New York, where there were paid protesters, fake protesters, and they held up signs that said, "There is no genocide in Nigeria," they said. I was waiting for the sign that would say that there are no IDP camps, but I didn't see those. So we're going to be talking about those in the IDP camps. What are IDP camps? Who are those people? Where are they located? Are they in Nigeria? Are they outside of Nigeria? How is this whole thing impacting them? How is it going to be impacting Nigeria as a whole? How are they living? Is the federal government, have the federal government built them ruga? Yeah. Have they built them homes? Do they have food? What about schools for the young children that are there? One of the statistics show that in 3 local government areas in Benue State, there were about 169,000 people in an IDP camp. Of that, over 90,000 were children. 90,000 children in IDP camps. And when you see the images of where they are staying, you would understand the reason why we're focusing on those victims today. We're focusing on the victims all through this month of October, so that the world can actually see what's going on in Nigeria. Okay, so we are live now. And so we're going to kind of kick off the meeting now, but I wanted to welcome you to NINAS. And again, this is the Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. NINAS is the freedom vehicle. NINAS is the vehicle that made possible the constitutional force majeure. And while that sounds like something very complicated, it isn't. The constitutional force majeure was declared in December 16 of 2020, and simply said, it said that the ethnic nationalities from the Middle Belt to the South are rejecting, or in legal terms, repudiating the 1999 Constitution as the basis for unitary Nigeria, on the basis of the fact that the people did not make that Constitution, and that Constitution is actually against the people. It also declared a sovereignty dispute. What is sovereignty? NINAS is saying there are nations in Nigeria. There's always been nations. And in 1960, the agreement by those nations was to come together, but to remain independent with their own heads of state, presidents, premiers, their own constitutions, separate constitutions. They had charge of their own assets. Okay, they had charge of their own assets. They were autonomous and self-governing. Okay, that's what we had in 1960. That's not what we have today. That is not what we have today. And NINAS is saying those nations need to be restored because they had a small center, similar to the EU, sort of like similar to that concept, right? Where they all agreed to have certain things be in that center for economies of scale, because it made it easier to come together and save money doing that. But what we have today is not that. There is one constitution, and there is that 1999 constitution that says that we, the people, lies, said that we want to have an indivisible, indissoluble Nigeria. And we always ask the question, are the people in Nigeria really stupid? Why do we ask that question? Because you all see around the world, whether in the US, the UK, in Australia, in China, it doesn't matter where you look. You find Nigerians thriving, Nigerians from the middle belt to the south, they're thriving, they're at the top of their game. And their forefathers, brilliant minds. We all know that. So, if Nigerians are so brilliant, how did they manage to put a constitution in place where citizens have no rights? Let me repeat that. If we are so brilliant and our forefathers were brilliant, how is it that in 1999, we put in place a constitution that said that our benefits in Chapter 2 of the Constitution is not enforceable when you look at Chapter 1, Section 6, subsection 6C. We are not that stupid or crazy. I guarantee you that. So, that is one fallacy. Let's talk about another. It said that the people of the Middle Belt to the South, and especially the South, decided that they were going to hand over their oil and minerals and gold and everything to a federal government and have that federal government divide their assets and give other people more of their assets than they themselves receive. I see you guys are looking at me skeptically. It's actually true. There's something called the Federation accounts in the Constitution. And before that, there is a 68-item exclusive list. That means in these 68 items, only the federal government controls that. And in that 68 items, it's all the assets of all the nations. And the Federation account now says those assets that have now been hijacked by the federal government is going to be divided using 3 factors. One is local government area, second is land, third, population. I'm going to ask everyone listening today to go and check out the number of local government areas in the far north compared to that in the south. I'm not even going to give you the numbers. But I'll ask you to check out Lagos versus Kano State. Check out Lagos versus Kano State. Bayelsa, that has oil, versus Kano State. Imo State versus Kano State. And remember, when you're looking at Kano State, you're going to add Kano and Jigawa together for you to get the true picture. And then while you're in this meeting, I will ask you to do something else. Take a look at land size. Do you see the size in the north, in the far north? Well, then compare that to Bayelsa, Imo. In fact, compare that to the whole of the south. Land size. magical number that works wonders to take assets belonging to the Middle Belt of the South and move them to the North. And the last one is population. You should take a look at what the population is in the far North compared to other places. When you add those three things together, you immediately see what's called apartheid. Add that to the lack of federal character, because guess what, people? We brilliant people also said that while federal character is a good thing, it shouldn't be enforced. Wow, we are really a group of stupid people in Nigeria. In 1999, somehow we took a stupid pill. We all did. All those brilliant attorneys, all those brilliant ministers, ambassadors, engineers. We all took a stupid pill. And get this, we also said, never mind, even though a constitution is made by the people, we said, you know what? It's okay. Let's just take Military Decree 24 and make it our constitution. Wow. What a group of stupid people we are. So this is what unitary Nigeria is telling you and I to believe, that we made this thing against ourselves. And that's why you must speak out. You must understand these things and you must speak out. And make sure that the world hears about this. Because NINAS has rejected that constitution. It has declared sovereignty disputes. And it is asking for, it is saying that we're going to put in place a transition government, just like they did in South Africa. And from that transition government, we're going to go to a referendum so that the blocks, the Middle Belt, the Lower Niger, which is the Southeast and the South-South, and the Yoruba can vote in their referendum. And based on the result of that, we'll see what Nigeria would look like. And some of you are going to say, well, the Fulanese are not going to agree. The federal government are not going to agree. And we say, we don't care if they agree or not. Guess what? Sovereignty is our inalienable right of the ethnic nationalities. You can hijack their sovereignty, but when they come calling for it, watch out. You've got to give it back. And so we need to stand our ground. We need to activate our people. And we need to take back our sovereignty, take back our land. Because we have non-indigenous, yes, you heard me, non-indigenous. Let anyone show me any history that places the Fulani on our Nigeria ancestral grounds. Any documentation, anyone. Just one that says that the Fulani are indigenous to Nigeria. So if they're not indigenous to Nigeria, they're in Nigeria, and they're bringing Fulani from all over Africa into Nigeria, you know what that's called? An invasion. It's an invasion, my people, to take our ancestral lands. A lot of you might have been thinking, oh, well, you know, we've had Fulani there for years. They started the invasion with Ottoman Dan Fodio. So I've talked enough about that. But that just gives you the woes, right? The roads, lack of healthcare. So I want to go on now to talk about who are the victims. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can talk about who are these victims. Now I see that Seb is here. Seb, are you ready to read? I'm going to make you co-host, Seb.
Actually, I'm not ready to speak, but I can if there's something you want me to dwell on.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring up a slide so you can talk about the victims, okay? if that's all right, because there's a lot of victims.
Okay.
So we'll talk about those victims, and then we're going to transition into talk about IDP camps, because that's a serious woe of Nigeria at 61. So give me a minute here while I pull up the information for Seb. I'm going to share my screen so that Seb can talk to us about the victims. Okay, Seb, if you can unmute and just talk to us about the victims. Who are victims of Nigeria at 61? Are you able to unmute? There you go.
Who are victims? Some people were celebrating Nigeria at 61. And I was just asking, what are we celebrating? Ah, okay. If you remember, not long ago, a young millionaire called Obi Kubana, right, buried his mother, and it was a great celebration. There were a lot of things happening. Many cows were killed. People were feasting. They were celebrating the life of the mother because she lived long, right? So, but at 61, nobody celebrates. Nigeria at 61, Nigeria has been dying, especially since 1999. It's been dying. At 61, Nigeria is bleeding profusely. And who are the victims? It's you and I, the indigenous people. The owners of the land are the victims of the union, which we did not make. We had a union, a federal union, which our fathers, I don't call them our forefathers, they are our fathers. They negotiated. And then some people hijacked that and turned it into a unitary union. Now they are on the march. Over 400,000 people killed. They started with Boko Haram. As the world declared Boko Haram terrorists, they changed into emboldened Miyetti Allah. As Nigerians are crying, demanded that Miyetti Allah be declared terrorist organization, they migrated into bandits. The same people. Over 400,000 killed. 300,000 refugees in their own land. Displaced from their homes. Over 4 million displaced from their land and living in IDP camps. Cameroon has a lot of them.
Niger Republic?
Niger Republic has a lot of them. No, the point is that many of us here, just like a lot of Nigerians out there, until it touches our own relative, we still think that these figures, these numbers are not real. But these numbers are real. You know what 400,000 means? For goodness sake, your family, even if your parents has 10 children, you have a football club, yeah? 12 people. So we're talking about 400,000 killed, and we are doing nothing. What actually is wrong with Nigerians? What is wrong with us?
Well, we are waking up now, Seb.
Nigerians, wake up. Yes, we are waking up, but we need to wake up faster.
Yes.
Before you are killed on your bed. 4 million people are displaced from their lands. And the thing is that the people, the foreigners who come in and attack farmers in their villages, displace them, chase them away from their villages, they take over their houses. Yes, they are living today in their houses. But is this a fairy tale? This is a horror show. This is reality. People are maimed, people are raped, extorted. Now the bandits are now the so-called bandits, right? They now kidnap people and collect millions, with which they buy new ammunition. Look, I know soldiers in the Nigerian army. I know soldiers in the Nigerian army fighting in the front of Borno. I know at least 3 of them who are giving their life to save the people of Borno. And they have inferior armory, inferior equipment. Yes. And our Nigerian politicians are spending our money making weddings with private jets all over. You saw the wedding of the son of Buhari, right? You saw the wedding because Buhari is now Dangote. Yeah, he's now Dangote. That's why at the wedding of his son, you have more than 11 private jets.
And Seb, how do you feel about the fact that Nigeria has so many loans that are obviously going into those private jets?
I'm sorry for the countries that are giving those loans to Nigeria. They will regret it. NINAS has warned them on 16th of December to be careful. Any loan they give out to this country from 16th of December is disputable. We take loans to sustain 1,500 people, politicians. 70 to 80% of our national income is going into sustenance of governance. And what are they governing?
Poor roads, poor health system. Yeah.
Pardon?
I say poor roads, poor healthcare system, 100 million in starvation.
Exactly. We have wonderful health system. That's why they fly overseas for treatment. Nigerians, wake up. Look, this land is our land. This docility that we are showing is the most stupid thing we can do. You show docility, you lose your land.
So Seb, if you can finish going through the list of the victims so that we can move on.
Wait a moment.
You were at extorted.
Unfortunately, I don't have it with me now. The list, okay, it's here. It's here. I think Are they seeing it? I hope everybody is seeing it.
Yeah, everyone is seeing it.
Women are raped. In many traditions of the peoples of Nigeria, rape is a taboo. In many traditions, we have up to 300 indigenous peoples of Nigeria. In most of these traditions, raping a woman is a taboo. But in our land, women are raped. And we're doing nothing. People are sleeping, they are kidnapped and extorted. You prevent people from farming. And what's the result? We have famine, we have starvation, man-made famine. And tomorrow the government will say, yes, they're borrowing money. They have called on ECOWAS to help with agricultural produce. While we allowed non-indigenous to come and stop our farming. Children are made orphans. Wives are made widows. Men are made widowers. Farms are destroyed. Now, it has never been this bad. I'm not interested in the government of the day. And mark you, NINAS is not talking about the government of the day. Because even if a pastor or an imam, very holy one, becomes the president today, what is happening will continue to happen. Because the basic law, the 1999 Constitution, has been skewed in such a way that it encourages what is happening. So let people, especially when people are demonstrating, they are saying Buhari must go, Buhari must go. That is a childish approach. We are not interested in Buhari. It can be any president. The Constitution, which is the basic law, is what is encouraging all these atrocities. I think I will stop there. Or do you want me to continue? I can continue.
No, that is fine. Just the last thing that we're going to talk about this, okay? The last thing that we're going to talk about this. As you can see, there's quite a lot of victims. And did you notice that you are a victim? Whether you're here outside of Nigeria or whether you're in Nigeria. Because there is terror. That's why we have terrorists, the Fulani herdsmen, Boko Haram, ISIS, ISWAP, Al-Qaeda. Everyone is being terrorized. You are being terrorized, whether you have family in Nigeria or not. Because a lot of Nigerians, we have the intention of going back to retire. But that Nigerian doesn't exist anymore. The roads are so dilapidated that the kidnappers can just stake their location as you're trying to get your car out of the pothole. Voila, you're gone. So when you go back, and when your family, everyone is being terrorized. And as Seb said, we have over 4 million, it's now close to 5 million that have been displaced from their land. And the non-indigenous Fulani herdsmen, who are not being prosecuted, by the way, move in and take the land. What is the government doing? What are they thinking? Those people in those places are too strong for a Nigerian government to displace. I think it was Sani Abacha that said that if insurgency lasts for more than 24 hours, the government has a hand in it. And that T.Y. Danjuma in 2018 said, don't look for the Nigerian government to save you because they collude. They collude. International Criminal Court even got into the act in December of 2020. They said Nigerian armed forces have committed crimes against humanity that rises to the level of war crimes. This is not war crimes against another nation. It's war crimes against its own people. Okay, so let's talk about these, what's actually going on in these IDP camps. Okay, let's talk about what's going on. And let's talk about where they are. So I'm just going to show you a few things, and then we're going to bring on Dr. Carey. Dr. Carey, make sure you have your PowerPoint ready to show so that you can you'll be able to share, that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to share a couple of PowerPoint slides just so that you get what we're talking about. Okay, so that you can actually get what we're talking about here. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, Nigeria at 61, where no man is oppressed. This is Nation newspaper 11 days ago, and they're demanding an apology, because it is a place where every man that is not a governing man or woman, that is not non-indigenous, they are not oppressed. Everybody else, the rest of us, are oppressed. We're living as slaves in our own land, as Prof. Akintoye said a few years ago. He said the Yoruba are living as slaves in their own land. They have no access to their own assets. So 3 to 5 million displaced are living in IDP camps, in dangerous areas, suffering all kinds of unheard indignities. Celebrate at 61? End at 61 is what we're talking about, because this is not sustainable. Okay, so now we have an independence, October 2nd, Niger State needs prayers. Where is the government? Where is the government? Okay. All right, looks like I'm going backwards instead of forward. Okay. Refugees. We talked about over 300,000. Let me tell you, okay? This seems like it wants to go on its own way. 330,000 in Niger, Cameroon, etc. That's just there. 330,000. So now you see that over 300,000 is a small number, right? This is what we have in Nigeria. And who are doing this? Talking about Fulani herdsmen. This is the ICC. This was in the newspapers in December. IDP camps, marginalization and poverty. The sites are just horrific. Absolutely horrific. Here it is, October 7. He visited IDPs in Niger Republic. What about the impact on voting rights, right? What about impact on voting rights? What about those over 300,000 that are living outside of Nigeria? We're going to elections in 2023. How are they going to vote? Even in Nigeria, look at this. Just the IDPs in Benue. This one has 120,000, and they're not registered to vote. Things we don't even think about. If you have 4 million displaced, how do they vote? Take a good look at this picture. Those things that you see, those white things that you see, is where they live. That's not where they're spreading out their clothes. Those are their homes. See how much taller they are than their homes? Just sticks in the ground, covered with tarp. And these were people that had farms. They had homes. They had belongings. That's what they've been reduced to. And we're paying 100 billion to Mieti Allah. a couple of years ago? 100 billion to stop kidnapping. But this is what we're having. Okay. So now I am going to leave off and get Dr. Carey to give us his presentation. But what we're showing you here is the wars of Nigeria, 61 years. I'm sure you guys have all seen the story on Ghana and South Africa and all these other countries that used to envy Nigeria. Now we're the poverty capital of the world. Almost 100 million living in not just any kind of poverty. They're living in abject poverty. Almost 100 million. Why are these loans? What are they being used for? They're not being used on the roads or the hospitals. So like Seb said, it's going to the government. Because all of us stupid Nigerians in 1999 said we did not need any benefits in the Constitution. So, Dr. Carey, you are up and you are a host and you can share your screen. You are welcome. Dr. Carey is from the Middle Belt and he's going to be talking to us a bit about the IDP camps because this is a serious problem. In fact, just so you know, even though we're talking about 4 to 5 million, the real impact, according to the world numbers, is almost 9 million that need financial help. So the victim number just keeps growing in every direction. So Dr. Carey, thank you very much, and you are welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, everyone, for having me. I'm delighted to be. I'm sorry for my absences a couple of weeks ago. Lots of things happened back home, killings of 50 people in a day. Yeah. My very friend Obadiah Malafi passed away in a shocking way. Yeah. Then I had a terrible cold. Maybe the stress brought me a terrible cold for 1 week. I just started recovering. I'm really sorry, but I'm back now.
You are welcome. We're happy to have you.
To be part of this platform. I'm going to just share. My focus is about the precarious situation of the Middle Belt, which the government is concealing and only showing what is happening in the Northeast. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to be as hopefully as bristly as possible. Let me share my screen. Right, so it's the whole thing is to raise an awareness about what is happening, and also to raise an alarm, and also to bring a kind of to correct the false narrative of what is happening and the international conspiracy of silence, and also to solicit support for IDPs, and also show you the extent of what is happening in the Middle Belt. But first, I'm going to show you what the government is trying to sell out to the world. First, the information from an Internal Displacement Center, IDC, is just talking about conflicts, limiting the number in 2000 to 279,000 only. And and in terms of conflict, they're just talking about 169,000, and also talking about 2 million IDPs. That's the kind of wrong narrative they're giving, and they're focusing essentially about the Northeast. But if you look at this data, they're talking about Boko Haram all the time, but actually victims of Fulani Jihad from 2015 to 2020 are up to 7,000. Okay, the ones that were killed by Fulani jihadists. So it's worse than Boko Haram actually number, but the government won't talk about it. They're only talking about Boko Haram, ISWAP, and so on. But the killings by Fulani jihadists, it's actually worse. They're actually more deadly than Boko Haram. United Nations Refugee Agency also gave some statistics, as you can see, in terms of what's happening in Katsina, Zamfara, Sokoto, about 35,000, 210,000 people across Katsina, Sokoto, and Zamfara, and so on. But when it comes to Middle Belt, it's always glossed. Look at that. It says in the Middle Belt. It says here. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. In the Middle Belt, this is a
277,000.
Yeah, that's terrible underrepresentation.
In just Benue alone, we have 1.8 million.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. So I'm coming to that. All right. But that's a wrong data, wrong representation. And then the United Nations Refugee Agency gave a report and said, and they were all concerned about the Northeast and saying, actually, the needs of them have not been met. By the end of 2019, over 4.6 million requested for the IDPs. And we're all talking about the Northeast, not the Middle Belt. And 0 was received. Many refugees were living outside the settlements and development of new settlements stopped. More than 90% of IDPs had no documentation. And this report is about Northeast, nothing about the Middle Belt. Nothing. Now, remember that this thing has history. This killing has history. The jihad, which most of us know about in 1803, 1804, and then we have the colonial experience, we had the war itself, and then the crisis began most notably in 1987. I was part of this crisis. I was a lecturer then, and then also Zango crisis, the Khattab crisis, and also the Jos crisis, and so on. However, it's now gone beyond just conflicts, beyond persecution to genocide. Because during the first half of 2020, about 2,000 Christians were killed in southern Kaduna alone. Now, the Middle Belt has been defined here by our late brother, Obadiah. I still call him my brother, as if believe he's still alive because I'm so shocked. So this is the definition of the Middle Belt. It's outside the Sharia state. The best way to understand the Middle Belt is anything outside the Sharia states into the southern part of any Sharia state, plus the Middle Belt and Benue is the Middle Belt. And it's a large population. Right. Now, the lies and deceit and propaganda covered by the current government is that it's farmers in this conflict, it's a revenge killing, it's foreign criminals and militias from Libya, it's got nothing to do with the Fulani who are staying with us, it's effect of global warming, but that's not true, false. The truth is that Sharia law is jihad, it's land grabbing, it's political economic war, it's actually genocide. That is what is driving, these are the factors that are driving what we have today in the Middle Belt. Now, I mean, they want to say it's a conflict, but it's a genocide. The United Nations defined clearly what genocide is: causing serious bodily, mental harm. They're doing that to us. Deliberate inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. They have decimated lots of communities and have taken over. I'll show you the statistics in a minute. Imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group. Yes, it's happening. That's also forceful transferring children. Young girls in the Middle Belt are being forced to go and marry Muslims. So that's happening already. So it's actually genocide. Now, as you earlier heard, it's about 1.8 now, or 1.5 million IDPs in Benue alone. And there are about 31 official IDP camps. And this is their state. This is from the state government data itself. Their situation is quite terrible. The children are out of school. This is not the culture of the Middle Belt people at all. But it's it's preordained, premeditated, calculated plan to displace the people. This is an example of how an IDP setting in Benue is. Look at the children. Look at the massive number of children, apart from women and men. Sad and terrible. Now, what about southern Kaduna? It's about 80,000 IDPs are displaced. That's a rough estimate. In the first half of 2020, 2,000 people were killed there, and over 117 communities have been destroyed and displaced and occupied by Fulani now. and they're being helped by the government, because the government is busy creating emirates in southern Kaduna, taking over land and changing the landscape and the narrative and the tradition of the people. So it's a clear jihad, clear genocide. In 2021, about 50 people were killed, 250 houses in 1 month in Zangonkata. 1 month, just 1 month only. And also, just recently, about a couple of weeks ago, about 50 people were killed in the Magami Kaura local government council. This is just in one night, 50 people in one night. Sometimes it could be 100, as in the case of the people in Plateau, irregular people in Plateau. Now, this is the image of the destruction, the wanton destruction in southern Kaduna. I mean, this is massive, terrible. The precarious situation that they're reduced to mass grave burials that's happening. It's terrible. The trauma is unimaginable. The state of despondency, the state of horror, it's unimaginable. And these killings are going on with impunity weekly, daily, and often underreported, even not reported at all. Then the Plateau. Plateau has over 38,000 IDPs. Just from the government report, but I know it's much more than that. About 1 million displaced persons in the Plateau state alone. Now, this is the data we have from the, they're talking about the Northeast area, but the data is staggering. This is just 20, this is not even the recent data, all right? But look at the staggering data, Taraba State, okay? Look at the one in Adamawa State, that all part of Middle Belt. Look at the IDPs in Borno, Adamawa, and so on. The statistics are staggering, quite staggering. That's in 2014, but by 2021, this number has quadrupled. Right. Now, what is the situation? The situation is precarious. It's terrible. I can't show you some of the images because they're graphic. They're terribly graphic. And women raped up their children, the pregnant women killed, houses destroyed, churches burned. I don't have the statistics here, but we have a statistic of churches destroyed. Just this year alone, over 30-something churches destroyed in southern Kaduna alone. Now, so these IDPs are in a terrible state. They need help. They need help in terms of donations. They need help in terms of partnership. Anything at all. Could be bedding, jewelries, food items, equipment, medicines, and partnership in terms of sponsoring, financial help, and also supporting the widows, and also trying to publicize what is happening, letting the international community know about the situation, because it's quite dire. In one camp, you can have 5,000 people. There are currently over 10 IDP camps in southern Kaduna alone. Now, I have not talked to you about Nasarawa State. I haven't talked to you about Niger State and other states in the Middle Belt, but it's quite dire and terrible. So I just hope that you can see how terrible the situation is, and know that we are in it's genocide and nothing else. Like our brother said and our sister said, why are we not angry enough? Why are we not angry enough to react to what is, to stop what this evil? There's war going on already, displacement. Like I said, in Plateau, there's hundreds and hundreds of communities have been taken over by Fulani, and the places have been renamed. Okay, the original ancestral land has been renamed and given Fulani names. If you go to Kaduna, if you come out of Kaduna town, the communities have been taken over and renamed. All right, the communities cannot go. The IDPs cannot go back to their farm. They will be killed. The government does not visit them. The government doesn't provide anything for them. The federal government doesn't talk about it. Let me tell you how precarious, how terrible it is. The sad thing about Plateau, for example, the governor, I thought, we're grateful about the governor of Benue State. He is for his people and is not apologizing. But the one in Plateau does not care, right? And then the one in Kaduna is the worst of all of them because he is changing the narrative and making the place and creating more emirates in Kaduna, displacing the people and bringing more Fulanese and giving them the land. And therefore, if you go in Kajuru, for example, in Kajuru, the government does not allow it does not allow IDP camps to be erected. No, you can't keep the IDPs. They will disperse them because it doesn't want the world to know that there are IDPs. But there are thousands and thousands of IDPs, and some of them are completely dispersed, and they're harassed, and they have no place. So when we send help to them, we'll have to go and gather them in different communities and give them food. And so if you go there now, so the government does not allow IDP camps to be in place, not even allowing that. It's evil and it's terrible. So this is the situation they are in. Quite dire, quite terrible. I'm talking about families, like for example, the last crisis 2 weeks ago, one family alone, 11 people were killed overnight. One family alone, 11, completely. Some families have been wiped out completely. 11 people in one family destroyed. So in one day, 39 people were buried. It's terrible. It's terrible. So I'm going to stop here. I hope it's enough for you to understand the situation. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear you. I don't know.
If you can stop sharing your screen, Dr. Carey.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Now, guys, this is a small microcosm of what's going on in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Very small. He's just talking about a small area. Talking about the Middle Belt. But you know what we know? We know that there is much more going on everywhere. In Lagos with the IDP camps. Doesn't matter where you look, the IDP camps. And the cry has been going out for the government to do something. These IDP camps did not start yesterday or last year or the year before that. It started long before they started taking these loans. So why are the IDP camps, why are there no housing there? And yet, the Bauchi state governor said that we should bring all the Fulanese around Africa because he said, they are our brothers. Whose brothers? I ask you again, find me any history that puts the Fulani in Nigeria. Going way back. Any. They're non-indigenous. So how did they become our brothers? Wait, how did they become our jailers? Because we're living as slaves. I'm not saying anything that isn't out there. I'm just saying something that we need to be very clear in communicating. Every one of us, we need to be ambassadors of this message because it is the truth. The UN is reporting these numbers. We're not making it up. The International Criminal Court, Amnesty International, Amnesty Nigeria, the UK, Baroness Cox has been, having talks with in the UK Parliament about this. We need to make our voices heard by coming together. And there are lots of things that we can all do and we need to do. So I'm going to open it up now so that we can have a conversation. You can share information. You can ask questions about, the wars of Nigeria at 61, or about specifically what's going on with victims. If you want to talk about IDP victims, that is fine. If you want to talk about the refugees who are outside of Nigeria, who have fled in all directions, that is fine as well. So we're going to open it up for questions now. So that if you want to ask a question, simply raise your hand and we will call upon you to ask your question. If not, I will unleash Seb on you. And he can tell you, he can tell you a lot more about what's going on in Nigeria. So if you have a question, this is a time to ask your question while I pull up some more information that we can share. So anyone that wants to ask a question or make a comment, now is the time to do so while I bring up some more information about what's actually going on and what NINAS is talking about. Okay. Emmanuel, if you can go on camera, I will ask you to unmute. Emmanuel of the Benin Kingdom. You need to go on your camera so that I can call you up. Emmanuel, can you hear me? I see your hand up. Okay, there you go. Go ahead and make your submission, and anybody else, do please just raise your hand and we will call upon you. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Hi, thanks for all your messages and all the works you guys are doing in trying to make people aware of what is going on in Nigeria currently. I've been following NINAS for a while now, also be signing up to all the referendum and everything that's been going on to try and get the numbers up. But my question is the approach NINA has currently is pretty much of a long-term plan. But my question is, what can be done right now or as in a short term to actually stop what is going on? Because at the end of the day, the same situation continues. So
I love that question, Emmanuel. And I'm going to have Donald. I can't see you. Where's Donald? Donald, where are you? Is he still in here? If not, I can have Seb answer that question, or Honorable. Because the question is NINA's plan a long-term plan? And what is NINAS asking us to do now? So Seb or Honorable? Honorable, did you want to answer that? Seb, you want to take a spin at that? I'll let you get started.
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead and get started.
I can start answering it, and you know I talk long.
Yeah, you've got 2 minutes. That's it.
2 minutes is not enough.
2 minutes. That's it. Is the NINAS plan a long-term plan? And what are we being asked to do in the short term?
My brother Emmanuel, it is in our nature as Africans that we want it now and today. We want it fast, quick. But the question is there a quick solution to this problem? We have a living example in Southeast, okay? Right now, as we are speaking, we know what is happening in Southeast. Because of the agitation there, the guys want it quick. This movement, NINAS, and the solutions being profiled by NINAS is a long-term solution, which started from 1999. We are on the 21st year of it, right? Why? Because if you take it quick, that same constitution will consume you. That same 1999 constitution will consume you. The government has the constitution, and the government has all the weapons, all the power, all the monopoly, 68 items in the exclusive list. And you, for you, you are vigilante to get a pump action, they have to go and register with the government, right? So if you want it quick, you go and kill yourself. That is what is happening in Southeast. That is what IPOP did. Okay? NINAS tells you, look, we've got to do this with brain power. And we got to do this according to international regulation. NINAS, through the Lower Niger Congress, the Middle Belt Union, the Oduduwa organization, they have been working in the international arena to get the stakeholders, to make them aware of our situation and to get them convinced. Okay? Barrister Tony Nnadi and his team, they were in with the United US Congress 2019, and the presentation they made there brought our situation clearly to the American Congress people. And the policy of America today is influenced by our fight. Okay? We have to have the patience and do it the long-term way, but legally, so that they do not use the powers in their position to consume us. We have a living example happening today in the Southeast. Okay? Now, during the NSAS program, you saw our youth carrying Nigerian flags, showing their love for Nigeria. And as they were demonstrating, you saw this government recruiting hoodlums to go and disrupt the demonstration so that they will use power, they will use force, they will use this same constitution to kill our youth. It happened, right? So please stop talking about quick action, because you do not have the ammunition you need to fight. If you talk quick, the only quick action is war. Let's be very honest about it. The only quick action is to declare war. But you declare war against a government that has all the ammunition? No. And the international organization, the United Nations, does not like war. The United Nations has done its part by showing the regulation how indigenous peoples can pursue their self-determination. And that is what NINAS is following. The action we need today is to stop 2023 election. That is the action we need today. And how are you going to do that action? We know all these people who are going to vie for election. Get them and tell them, stop, you are not representing us anymore. We don't want 2023. This is action that all of us can do. Stop 2023 election, and then this constitution is thereby nullified. I don't know whether this is clear enough. Stop 2023 election. That is the quick action, my brother Emmanuel. Can we do that? Or are we declaring war without weapons?
Okay, Sam, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to give some perspective to what Seb has been saying, okay? So in answer to your question, Emmanuel, the short answer is that there has been a long tail to the NINAS plan, but we are at the tail end of it, right? We're at the end of it now, because there was time taken to have the PRONACO, there was time taken to have the lawsuit in 2007 to 2009. There was time taken to do the solemn assemblies for the ethnic nationalities between 2015 and 2018. There was time to engage the foreign, the US, the UN, the ICC, and all the various groups, right? And in 2019, the UN sent the special rapporteur. Their role is to go and get independent information. And they came back and independently, Agnes Kalamat, she said, the constitutional arrangement in Nigeria, powder keg, grave situation, urgent action needed. 2020, another special rapporteur, and he said, grave situation, urgent action needed. Right? All of this has been put in place. And then in December, in 2019, the US placed Nigeria on the watch list. And in 2020, December, I placed it on the blacklist, okay, for egregious religious violations. Then the UN issued its numbers. So the number of people that are being killed, number of people displaced. And then the International Criminal Court in December 11th of 2020 now issued its own statement. There was reasonable basis to believe that Boko Haram and the Nigerian armed forces had engaged in crimes against humanity that rose to the level of war crimes. War crimes. And an action was needed, a follow-up was needed. So we need to make sure that the ICC is following through. That was in December. This is in October. We need to follow up and see exactly what they have done in that time, right? So we're now at the tail end. So come December 16th of 2020, when the constitutional force majeure was now issued, because all these other things have been done, engagement with the UN, provision of the maps of the regions, provision of the information about what's going on in the Sharia north, would technically have already seceded from a secular state. You know, we're not supposed to have any religion, but it is all in the Constitution. Everything about Sharia, everything about Sharia law, nothing about Christianity, nothing about anything else. The 12 contiguous states in the far north have seceded because they have implemented Sharia law. And Sharia law says that everybody else must die, in other words. Okay, so that's why it took that long to put all of those steps in place. Now we're at the tail end, and I'm waiting for my picture to come up so I can show that, right? We're at the tail end of that process, and we are now waiting, as Seb said, to activate our people, right? We're activating our people because at the end of the day, it is people. It is people that gain their freedom. If you look back to the French Revolution, it was the people. Here, it's the people. We have to let our people know what's going on. And as Seb said, one of the key things that we need to do is stop the 2023 election. Why? What did the election ever do to you? I'll tell you what the election has done to you. The election is what keeps that fraudulent and murderous 1999 Constitution in place, because the elected officials must swear to uphold that Constitution. So NINAS has repudiated or rejected it. If 2023 comes up, then they'll bring it back and swear it back in. But who are they swearing it in for? Are they swearing it for you? Are they swearing it for the people? If there were, 100 million people would not be living in poverty, while a senator takes home $600,000 a year and has private jets. They are managers. The governing of Nigeria, they're managers. The people have the power. How is it that people are hungry and the governing are living large? Something very wrong with that. So right now, the few things that all of us need to do, we need to be communicating to our people what's going on, making it clear to them who is doing this to them. The non-indigenous Fulani. What instrument are they using? The 1999 Constitution. Who is keeping that Constitution in place? Well, the election process. What do they need to do? They need to spread the news. They need to sign the petition showing that they want a change, and they need to make sure They need to make sure, as Pastor Jefferson says, that no 2023 election can be held under this Constitution. He was very clear about that. No 2023 election should be held under the 1999 Constitution. If we have a new Constitution by then, made by the people, okay. If not, it should be stopped and shut down. Not boycotted, stopped. So right now, you need to be talking to your politicians, telling them you need to be the transition government. It's in the Constitution of force majeure. You need to be the transition government. You need to stand with the people. Give them the chance to go, give them the chance so that they can go to their referendum. And then based on that, we'll see what happens. It doesn't mean that your career is over. Whatever happens, you have a place, whether in, it may not be in this form that we have it now, because no one's happy with this form that we have it now. But in the new form, you can still be a politician if the people will have you. Because if you don't, that means you're not standing with the people. Because the people are starving, they're dying. What are you doing to protect your people? Okay, so that, yes, the plan was a long plan. But the length of that plan now is in a very short window. And what everyone needs to do is clear. We had the march in New York, right? At UNGA. And that was a march that was heard around the world. And we just had a march that concluded in Atlanta yesterday. And I see Modupe is here. I saw her here earlier. We as a people need to make sure that our people know the truth and that we bring them up to do what they need to do, because they're the ones that need to do it. All our signatures is what is necessary. Okay, so Honorable, do you have anything to add to that? And Donald, I know that you're having some issues with connection, but if you guys have something to add to that, now is the time, or we will go to the next question. Honorable, no comments? You need to unmute. And I see Stephen over there. Stephen, I see you moving your mouth. I don't think you're muted, so I can't hear if you're wanting to speak or not.
Just acknowledging my presence. Thank you.
Okay, you are quite welcome. I see Emmanuel, you have another question, so I'll come back to you and you can ask the question. Go ahead, Emmanuel. Just go ahead and unmute.
Okay, I didn't quite get the brother that spoke earlier. I didn't get his name, so I'm gonna apologize for that. Yeah, I do understand that the most recent plan that we have is to stop the election. But what I do know, the same government that used the force to stop the NSAS protest, it should be expected they're going to use the same force to stop people who are trying to stop the election of 2023. Well, so I believe that should be expected, and that should be a predictable thing. So in that aspect of things, theoretically, it might work to say people should stop election of 2023. But the question is, how practical is that? Mm-hmm. But I'm not in Nigeria. I've got relatives in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. But I know that these people are going to use whatever force they're going to use to stop people to actually stop election. Similarly to what's probably happening in Anambra at the moment. So in that case, is what is actually practical for people to actually stop the election? Mm-hmm.
Well, let's answer that question. How many people do we have in Nigeria?
Well, approximately 210,000 is probably more, because there's no
210 million, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have, even if it's 10 million, standing up and saying this election must stop, what do you think is going to happen? Can you shoot all of them?
No.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about, activating people power. And it has to be activated everywhere. And so your role is to tell people what you've heard, what is actually happening, and the fact that they have a say in the solution. Because it's when the people rise up that things change. And again, I always use the French Revolution. The governing, they were riding in their gold gilded, right? Gold gilded, driving by people that had fallen dead on the road, even stepping on some of them to get down from their carriages. And then one day the people rose up and said, off with their heads. People have the power. Those that are governing are managers. The power comes from the people. But in Nigeria, we have it turned upside down because now the managers are acting as the power. The money is not getting down to the people. 100 million living in abject poverty, Emmanuel. Do you think that when they hear about what's going on, actually understanding, that they're going to sit still and let those same people continue? Right? Have you seen the packages for retirement? Do you know that those who are serving are still getting retirement? So they come out of retirement, they get retirement, and then they still start getting this big old thing that nobody else, that the people are not getting. Do you think that when they hear these and see the numbers, that they're going to sit still and say, oh yeah, you know, let's take the 4,000 naira or 10,000 naira that they give us every 4 years? Okay, because when hunger hits people, people rise. When they know who they're rising against, they're not that many. We're not anarchists. NINAS is not about anarchy. We don't want our land destroyed. Anyone that is saying that, oh, let's go to war, let's use force, let's do this, let's do that, it's to our disadvantage. We gotta use wisdom in what we're doing, which is what we're doing. You gotta use wisdom. And oh, by the way, wisdom is getting the US, the UK, and the EU to say to Nigeria, you better not bring guns to this fight. They have filed a dispute. You need to go talk to them and clear it up. They filed a sovereignty dispute. So we were at UN in New York, and we're going to be following up with them too. We have a team that's going to be following up with them to say, what are you doing? Here are your own numbers. Here's your own information. What's next, right? We said NINA is asking no more sales of arms to Nigeria because it's being used against the people. No more loans to Nigeria, caveat emptor. If you give them loans, we may not pay it back, and we probably won't pay it back because we told you that in December already. So any loan that you give to Nigeria right now is going to be a problem because it's not being used for the people, right? We say we're demanding referendum. So the world leaders need to come to bear, sanction Nigeria, and say, these people, you need to provide the evidence of the referendum and the plebiscite that brought in that constitution, because they're saying they did not make it. And oh, by the way, did you know that in that constitution, they have no rights that's enforceable? Did you know that? Because in a court of law, let's talk about a court of law. When you have undue influence from one party over the other, as in saying, okay, we're going to put in a constitution, but oh, by the way, let's just sneak in here and put something that they have no rights. Ooh, that's not going to stand, but it's in that constitution. So if we take it to the Court of International Law, they would look at that thing and say, oh my God. So we need to take it to the Court of International Opinion. What do they do in international countries during elections, or how they're going to determine what they do? They take it to the people. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be telling the international community while preparing our people to go to the referendum, so that they know that that's the path that we need to go to. And no, like I said, even if it's just 10 million out of 150 million from the Middle Belt to the South, that rise up, even if it's 5 million, they will be overwhelmed. Make no mistake about it. And that's what we need to understand, is that people have the power. We have the numbers, we have the power. And the world is not going to sit by and just let them open fire on everyone. Because we've stated our claim in our constitutional force majeure. We have shown that the nations exist. They exist just as little ago as between 1960 and 66. Western region had their own leader, their own constitution, separate from the other constitution. They control their assets. Why would they give it up and say, let somebody else take more than what we're taking for our people? That's stupidity. Put that constitution in any legal environment, because the constitution is a social contract and it will be tossed out. So we need to be clear on what is before us. We need to be clear of what our rights are, the people's rights. And we need to be bold and vocal in letting the world know and letting our people know, because they meet in the middle. Okay, I've got comment from Dupe. Hopefully that answered your question. So, because once you start kind of looking at the numbers of what we're talking about, you start recognizing that the people really do have the power. And once you get them moving, they're an unstoppable force. Okay, so we've got, I don't know if it's Stephen or Dupe that has their hands raised. One of you.
It's my hand. I'm just loaning the space.
Sorry.
Can you hear me? I wanted to ask if it is possible to go on a NINAS educational roadshow.
Yes.
To educating the each alliance member groups on where we are today, because we as a group, we are getting a lot of education here that are the alliance member groups are not getting. For example, we hold a weekly town hall for directorate. Ilana goes, I don't know how regular is that. They don't get the same updates that we get in where we are strategically as an initiative. You know, we do get updates on what is happening on the ground as what is happening to people. But in terms of what the self-determination effort, what is going on, where we are, and where we need to get to next, I think the general audience needs to know that, and NINAS is the only way where they can get that on a credible basis. So how do we do that? Do we select or elect NINAS ambassadors as each alliance member group and things like that?
Yes, Stephen, and guess what? You're actually going to be one of those, because that's a great segue into what is coming up, because we're going to be having the meeting of the core group, and that's specifically what we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
Spreading the message.
Okay.
And how do we do that? Because there's so many different tranches of it that we need to do. You know, obviously making sure that we have people that understand the NINAS message and can spread that message, right? There's the clubhouse now. There's a clubhouse, and the middle belt, like, spread the NINAS information, you know, about NINAS like wildfire. There's so much need there of NINAS people being in there to spread the message. So that's why we're going to come to that core group. And we're also going to get people from the Atlanta march that just concluded. We're also going to be bringing in, because we need leaders to understand the message clearly and be able to communicate that message. So we're going to go through, you know, like a process where we provide information to the leaders, and then you, Stephen, and Modupe and Emmanuel will be part of this presentation team that is going around getting people prepared. As Seb knows, we have what we call a conference preparatory team, where we bring people in, We share all of this information with them so they have a good grounding. They've got, they've got the document that they can refer to. They've got all the information summarized so that they too can provide that information more broadly. So we do have that in place, and we're just now going to be bringing in some new people, right? And we're just going to continue doing that so that we can educate folks so that this information can be going out. Does that make sense? Okay. So that was a great question to ask. Okay, I saw Bjorn, you had your hand raised, and we're coming to the end of this broadcast for today. Do you still have a question, or have your question been answered?
Yeah, my question has been answered. I was going to talk about, last week I was speaking to my cousin at home about this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking, how can you be involved? And the response I'm getting is, hey, remember NSAS? So somebody asked that same question now, and I was happy with the response. Mm-hmm. But can there any way that we can involve those people who cannot use proper phones in signing this petition? Those who cannot.
Absolutely. Oh, that is a great question. That's a great question, because this petition is actually scheduled in such a way that you can put your information in. And then, so if someone doesn't have a computer or a phone, you can input their information in. Okay. So we're going to need the freedom advocates on the ground who are going to be going around, right? They can just go into the market, talk to the people, put their information, either help them put it on their own phone if they have one, or use your phone to put their information in. Okay. So we've made it in such a way, because we actually had that coded specifically for that reason, because in our place there's so many that don't have that, computers or phones that allows them to be able to do that. So that's a great question. So yes, you can sign yourself in. Then you can sign in your family members. You can sign in your friends, your colleagues, if they don't have a way of being able to do so. Okay. Yeah. So, but what we're recommending is that you might want to, take that information down on paper as well. So if it doesn't get in, we can just get that information and input it in. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Exactly. So we can do that as well. Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's again, that's, like I said, that's a great question, because everyone needs to understand that every single person here can sign themselves off, and as many people as don't have the ability to sign themselves up. And that's how we get there, right? That's how we get there, because a lot of people in the villages, that are older may not have phones, but that's not a problem, right? Because your young people who are in school have phones. So we need to engage them to go and get and put their information into the petition. Okay.
Good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, do we have any other questions before we round up for today? Or anyone that wants to make a question, you don't have to have a question. If you wanted to make a comment or a suggestion, that'd be great. Akuche, is that you down there that I see?
Hello, yes, it's me.
Okay, my dear, if you can please talk to us about how we get engaged on social media, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Hi guys. I'm actually out and about, but let me try and turn my video on. I just wanted to first of all thank everybody for committing to being here every week. It's not an easy thing to do. It just shows our commitment to the change and that we're hoping for and working so hard towards. So it's admirable that we're here. We're back every week. So I just wanted to mention that. Social media, again, we can't overemphasize the importance of social media. Getting this message out to everyone. We're not, people in Nigeria don't have the liberty of just going down the streets and protesting peacefully or anything. We saw what happened last year, right?
Yeah.
They can easily, that's like a death sentence, that's like a suicide mission right now, right? So social media would be the best opportunity to still be able to get the word out in the massive proportions that we try to reach, right? And what does that mean? It means being more active on, or even just dedicating some time on your Twitter. You need to create a Twitter account if you don't have that, or your Instagram or your Facebook, because if you post something, for example, I'm going to use Facebook as an example, and you post something and it, resonates with someone else, all they need to do is to click the share button. And if they have maybe 200 people that follow their page, those 200 people, maybe even half of them might see it, or even if it's 10 people that see it, someone else, it might, hit someone else, and they're like, okay, let me share this. And then it just keeps going like a domino effect. So every time we go, we need to be intentional about it, and not just, walk around, and not just like be passive, right? We need to be more intentional. So that way, where it's people, there's some people that if they see it once, they see it twice, they might like, just disregard it. But the more they keep seeing it, then they're like, at some point they would say, oh, let me even take a look at what this person is saying. So it's super important that we continue to do that and not relent in doing that. And also, use your WhatsApp. WhatsApp is also very important. Share it on your WhatsApp, on your stories. It's really important. A lot of people go look at the stories, especially the young ones. If you're trying to target the young population, that is where a lot of people will go. And that in doing that, you are activating the people power, and that's where we are right now. So it's super important that we're able to do that. On Tuesdays, I know that NINAS does something where, we tweet, there's some representatives that tweet out in massive proportions. If you can retweet that, and when you're tweeting, make sure you're tagging the appropriate people. You're tagging the appropriate authorities. You're tagging the people that you feel that this message needs to get to. The media houses, you're tagging the government houses, the government institutions. It's super important that we're doing that. So we talk about this every week just because we're trying to lay that point down, that the importance of doing this and not relenting in doing that. So thank you. And I'm looking forward
to want to speak a little bit about Instagram?
Instagram is one of the biggest platforms out there.
TikTok?
And another good thing about Instagram is most young people, like the younger generation, relate to Instagram more than they would with Twitter. Twitter is more like maybe like a mid-older generation kind of thing. So a lot of younger, that's what part of why NSAS was so successful, was because it was first successful on Instagram and all these other platforms. So opening an Instagram account and, using like stories, there are apps that you can download where you can repost what someone else had posted, or even just going on these super, super big platforms where like the Insta blogs and, there are these pages where, and we can share those links to those pages where you can actually go and if you see a comment or a post that talks about, even if it doesn't talk about it, you can be the one to initiate it.
Exactly.
Because there's like every single thing that's happening in Nigeria right now, you can tie it back to, the Constitution and everything that, the exclusive lists and all of that. So when you see a post, you can, say, oh, like this area was flooded or whatever. You can make a comment as to, how that has come to be, right? So things like there's nothing you can actually like initiate. But Instagram is such a massive tool that we can also use to target the young people to know about this movement and where we're at, where we're coming from, and where we're going. Super important.
Absolutely. And I would like to ask you, Akuche, to give, we're going to do a session where you put together like a short video of how to use Instagram. That would be great. So that way we can share it with, share that with everyone. And we do have training for Twitter. So we can, train people on Twitter.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, so we are getting ready to close down in another couple of minutes. Do we have any burning questions, comments? I see Prof. Enyeribe Anyanwu. I'm going to call on you to say a few words because I know you've been listening intently over time. So I'm going to call on you to speak a few words of wisdom to us.
Thank you very much, Jane.
You are welcome.
I've been listening really very intensively, and I've been part of the process right from the beginning of the evening messages. At my age, I prefer listening because I've been talking most of my life. But all the same, there are a few things extracted from the discussions going on. And I hope it has seeped into every one of us. At times, I think and look at the songs people wrote, Bob Marley. We hear action speaks louder than words.
Yeah.
And the action we are carrying out is probably not the type of action Bob Marley means. But we still have a very, very limited option, except what is going on right now. Sometimes I see a dilemma, you know. It has been reported time again and again what is happening in the refugee centers, internal displaced centers. Question, how long can we wait and watch those things continue to go on? Number two, some of those people displaced are dead. How can we get, let's say, their children, other relatives, back to the land that has been occupied by foreigners?
Yes.
And the next question is, by what means? Another thing that bogs my mind is, how do we get the relevant international organizations to step in and stem the tide of wanton killings, rapes, famine, and all these things going on? Now they're sensitized, you know, but my experience in my little time, the little time I follow the United Nations on very many things is they act and talk fast when there is lethal action somewhere. Whether you take Kosovo, whether you take neighboring countries in Africa, look at what is going on in Ethiopia right now. If you take the Congo, what happened in Uganda and all that. I say they're louder than simply cerebral and intellectual engagement. In fact, I have the impression that in our world today, you can have intellectual engagement when people talking with you, people you are dealing with are actually on the same level when you are par with each other so that you can discuss the wherewithal, and it functions. But not where there is this disparity, you know, like we have. You have illiterates, I'm sorry to use that word, dictating your future. You see, there is no communication. And another thing I have to mention is there is a thorough misunderstanding of Islamic mentality when we're dealing with them. The Fulanis we're dealing with do not believe that you are, as human beings, at par with them. And that is why they will not allow any discussion at the same eye level with any one of us. Secondly, they promise themselves, I don't know where they got that whenever they oppress the non-believers, they have a higher reward in Nirvana. Please, how do I communicate to them that there is no such reward? That they promised 71 to 73 virgins for the jihadists, that actually they're not there. How do you take away this incentive from them so that they become human and not a piece of wandering pilgrims to Nirvana? I say these are the problems I'm really having. I think most of you also know that I don't need to keep your nerves taut because of that. If we can help actually get these people to dialogue, it's not just, you see, you know, the certification in Islam, the people we are dealing with are the most deadly Islamic members, not the people who really use Islam as religion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. And that's really a lot of information that we as a people need to take heed to. We are all ambassadors. And NINAS is going to be unveiling an ambassador program, you know, both ambassador to our people and ambassador to countries, right? That's who we need to be. Taking the correct information, dispelling this whole thing about how it's herder-farmer conflict. So then you can ask the international community, is it only Christians that are farmers? There is Northern Kaduna and there is Southern Kaduna. Why is it only Southern Kaduna that are being killed? Take a look at where all the killings are happening. There's a pattern. Where is CNN with its investigative reporting? Where's BBC? Al Jazeera English? The Wall Street Journal? C-SPAN? Any of the international reporters who are investigating, why haven't they investigated? They don't know that enough people have died? Well, we need to tell them. We need to have a media engagement. Have you written to your local paper, to CNN, to BBC? Sending them the UN information saying, have you seen this? Do you know that there's a genocide and it's ongoing? Why aren't you reporting? I guarantee you, if 100,000 of us send that letter, things will change. Even 10,000 will change it. This is where we come in, people. Why are you not on social media? You need to be, because you are the voice for the victims. You are the voice for all of us that are being terrorized and are going to have to need therapy for the PTSD. Yes, there is PTSD. That those in IDP camps have been so traumatized, it's crazy. They're starving, almost 100 million. Without a square meal a day. Do you know the trauma of watching their children? 40, 50 million children? Are you guys listening? Can you even fathom that number? In 3 local government areas in Benue, 169,000 people. Of that, over 90,000 were children. 90,000. Now think about 40 million children without shelter, without adequate clothing, without food. And that should give you the incentive to speak for them, because they're the voiceless, they're the marginalized, they're the oppressed, they're the silenced. So thank you all very much. This again is NINAS, which is a Nigeria Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. NINAS is the alliance of the Middle Belt to the south. NINAS is a freedom vehicle that has proclaimed a constitutional force majeure, rejecting the 1999 Constitution, as that Constitution is what is putting this apartheid in place. It's what has taken the sovereignty from the ethnic nationalities. It's what is allowing the Fulani to come into our space, and we are not able to tell them not to come into our space because our space has been hijacked. And that must change. We have a basic right to life. We have a basic right to defend ourselves by any means necessary. But if the government is keeping the perpetrators carrying weapons while disarming And I heard Shigami saying something about how these perpetrators, how these Fulani herdsmen have families. What is he talking about? What about the 400,000 that's dead? The 300,000 refugees? Did he not see the children there? Did he not see the children there? We must get the fire in our bellies to say no more and do everything that we need to do. Right now, our voices and our pens are mightier than the sword. Use them. Because wisdom is better than weapons of war. So I thank you all for joining us. We're always here every Saturday, 7 p.m. Nigeria time. And we tackle a lot of topics to get everyone understanding what's going on. This month is dedicated, this Independence Month is dedicated to the victims because the world needs to see these victims. We need to show it to them. This is not the only place. We need you on Twitter. We've provided that information. Okay, so thank you all again for joining us. And I am going to be stopping the live stream now so that you can all say hello.